Welcome viewers. In this lecture, I will be discussing about type 3 organizational theories. The type 3 organizational theories are also known as modern systems theory or contingency theory or organization environment model, which focuses on viewing organization as dynamic open systems interacting with their environment. There is no one best way to structure or manage an organization. These theories emphasize that optimal organizational design and approach depend on various internal external factors such as technology, environment and people within the organization, which suggest a context dependent rather than universal approach to management. The concept of organization environment theory or type 3 theory began in 1960s with the work of Kaz and Khan. In 1966, they have further explored this theory, describing that environment consists of forces, conditions and influence from outside of organization. Organizations are like open system which are influenced by few groups of researchers like Davis and Powell in 1992. Environment has enormous impact on managers' ability to use resources. How managers optimally utilize resources is influenced by the environment in which they are working. Some researchers have also studied the organization's death, Ulrich and Marsden in 1988. Organizations in the various life cycle stages from initiation, growth, maturity to decline, there is no innovation and the environment is very dynamic, the organization is not able to continue further. So, this theory revealed number of interdisciplinary research. The focus is on relationship between organizational study and ecology. Then further sustainability and other environmental science has emanated, which provides new rules and belief in management science. Nowadays, sustainability and ecological aspect of production is also one of the biggest global concern. The focus of type 3 theories is contingency theory, modern systems theory and environmental factors. Contingency theory, most effective organization structure and management strategy are contingent upon the specific internal external factors of the organization. Modern systems theory views organization as an open system made up of interconnected parts rather than a closed machine, and highlights the importance of internal and external variables and the organizational dynamics, the interaction with its environment. Environmental factors like contingency and modern systems theory, they recognize the factors like surrounding environment, technological advancements, the size of the organization and the nature of its workforce have significantly influenced its structure and effectiveness. There are contextual solutions. These theories encourage managers to analyze specific situations and tailor their strategies, decisions and designs to fit the unique circumstances rather than applying a one size fits all approach. There is interconnectedness. The emphasis is on understanding how different parts of the organization are interconnected, are linked and how these parts interact with each other and with the external world, how they are changing themselves, their practices, their structure due to the pressure in the external environment. So, overall type 3 theories, they have focused on the contingency designs. Dominant metaphor is an open systems view of organizations. These are the theories which are part of the modern management theories and their focus is on dynamic open systems, how organizations interact with their environment. Their focus is on how organizations behave like a dynamic open system interacting with their environment. The management theorists are Herbert Simons and the principles of backlash. Kaz and Khan have given environmental perspective. Further, there is a case of technology and lastly, the Aston Group and organizational science will be discussed. Type 3 theorist Herbert Shimon and Principles of Backlash, Kaz and Kahn's Environmental Perspectives, Case of Technology, Aston Groups and Organizational Science have further been discussed in this lecture. Neither the mechanistic nor the humanistic forces could gather evidence that this solution was right for all occasions. So, there is no one size fits all approach, and the conflict between thesis and antithesis has led to a synthesis that provide better guidance to managers. The synthesis have paved way for development of contingency approach. So, neither the mechanistic approach or the human relations approach could garner enough evidence of or solutions what was right for all occasions. When the environment has been evolving, changing, so how will the organization manage themselves? How will they carry forward their business in turbulent situations will be discussed by the type 3 theorists. The focus of modern management theories, this has led to the foundation for continuous development. Where what we discussed is, if an organization is facing a situation or is in a very dynamic flux like situation where there are external factors like changing technology, changing political factors or geopolitical issues which have created a pressure on the business environment and which has also led to disruption in its performance. So, how an organization can continue to perform. So, this is discussed in the systems view of organizations and contingency thinking or contemporary viewpoints of management practitioners. Organization as a systems metaphor. As we know that organization is like a system with an input, there is a process through which the inputs have been transformed into the finished goods. So, system is a collection of interrelated parts that function together to achieve a common objective. Subsystems is a smaller component of a larger system, and an open system is something which an organization's open system is what an organization and how it interacts with their environment in the continual process of transforming resources into output. So, it is based on a dominant metaphor that organization as a complex network of interacting subsystems. Various subsystems are working in coordination with each other and they are continuously interacting with each other or they are dependent on each other. So, the dominant metaphor for the type 3 theorist is organization as a complex network of interacting subsystems is an open systems. So, the inputs are suppliers and output is the customers. So, how is the organizational network of subsystems like we have purchasing and inventory systems, marketing, sales and distribution, operations and service management systems, information and technology, accounting and financial systems. So, all these systems, subsystems of a large system are interacting with each other and finally they are interacting with the business environment and they are getting a product which is supplied to the customers based on their needs, which is meeting the needs of the customers. So, contingency thinking has tried to match managerial responses with problems, various problems and opportunities. Unique to different situations, there is no one best fit solution. In every situation, as the situation is different, so organizations behave differently. No one best way to manage, an appropriate way to manage depends on the existing situation. So, how the situation is, say for example, if there is a change like the present organizations today are seeing a transformation in technology, there is a switch towards smart technologies. So, how would the organization respond if the environment is mired with lot of competition? So, how would the organization adopt the practices and how would it manage its operations? This theory has been further given by Herbert Shimon. Herbert Shimon is an American scholar, influenced the field of computer science, economics, and cognitive psychology. His primary research was decision making within organizations, proposed various theories of bounded rationality and satisficing. His research interdisciplinary in nature. It has a wide span from cognitive science, computer science, public administration, management and political science. They are pioneers of modern day scientific domains: artificial intelligence, information processing, decision making, problem solving, organizational theory, and complex systems. Earliest to analyze the architecture of complexity, they have analyzed the complexity in the business environment and to propose a preferential attachment mechanism to explain power law distribution, how resources can be optimally utilized, how resources can be distributed despite the chaos or complexity in the business environment. Herbert Shimon and his principles of backlash. Herbert Shimon argued that organizational theory needed to go beyond simplified principles to study of conditions under which competing principles were applicable. His main contribution was rational decision making, how to take a decision which is very logical and rational. Herbert Shimon and principles of backlash. Employees are rational and respond to situations within boundaries of rationality. This assumption is based on the living systems metaphor. Organization is like a living system and responds differently to different situations. This concept is also given by March and Shimon in 1958 and Sayot and March in 1963. Based on this assumption of behavioral theory of firms, individuals as rational individuals, they seek goals within the limitations, within the boundaries of their abilities to process information. Firms have set a goal of on each dimension, it has an aspiration level. There are certain expectations of the firm depend on past performance and performance of comparable organizations or competing organizations. If the performance exceeds its aspirational level or its expectations on a goal, the organization operates with its established routines. If the firm fails to meet the aspirations or expectations, it looks for an alternative course of action and will change accordingly. So, there are normative and descriptive models. Normative decision making models show how managers ought to make decisions. Typically, this assumes that behavior is rational and all necessary information is available. So, it begins with defining the problem. Decide preferences, what are your preferences and goals, and identify available options, devise criteria, what are the criteria to evaluate those options, different types of methods are being used to evaluate criteria, and evaluate those options and select the best possible alternative or best approach. Descriptive decision making models, how managers actually make decisions, and often managers operate under conditions of imperfect information in which bounded rationality prevails. There are certain boundaries under which or under those conditions the information has to be taken. Do things appear to be running smoothly? So, then if the things are not running your as per the plans, focus on something else, then there is also search for problem fix, then you have to change goals, does solution work, put it into practice. So, descriptive decision making models show how managers actually make decision. It does not fall similar to what the normative decision making models suggest. These models show how managers actually take decisions. Often managers operate under conditions of imperfect information. There are limited information in which bounded rationality prevails. Decisions as a rational choice. This concept is explained by Herbert Shimon. Problem solving focuses on best means to a given end. Comparison implies common basis of measurement. If you want to compare two or more options, if you want to have a comparison between options, it seems as if you have to express them in the same units. This is implied by the widespread use of spreadsheets in which options appear as adjacent rows or columns. Goals and values are implicit, buried in the statement of the problem, buried in the choice criteria and weightages. There are certain weights assigned and perverted by the hidden limitations of any measurement scheme. Or search intelligence, looking for things that call for problem solving and decision making. You need to depend on certain database, data mining concept, internet design, inventing, developing and analyzing possible courses of action. You need to develop a model and the choice, that is selecting a particular course of action from those alternatives. You have a spreadsheet or simulation. So, decision as a rational choice. There are certain limits to rationality. People and organizations usually act on the basis of incomplete or half information, imperfect information, can only explore a limited number of options, cannot attach accurate values to outcomes. So, bounded rationality is good enough decision, satisfying most satisfying decisions. What is best decision in that given condition? Herbert Shimon and James March have given this concept. Organizations can be understood as institutionalized brains. There are fragments, routinized and bound the decision making processes to make it manageable. The articulation of organization creates a structure of attention, interpretation and decision making, simplifies the task facing each manager. Kaz and Khan's environmental perspective emphasizes on open systems perspective for examining the important relationship of an organization with its environment. There is a need for organization to adapt to a changing environment if they have to survive. So, there is a need to change, learn, unlearn the past and also carry forward with what is the requirement of environment. Daniel Kaz has given the systems view or the systems theory, was an American psychologist, emeritus professor in psychology at University of Michigan and an expert on organizational psychology. Social organizations are open systems where inputs of energies and conversion of output into further energy input consists of transactions between organizations and its environment. Systems theory is concerned with problems of relationship. There are problems within the individuals who are working in the organizations, problems with the structure and interdependencies rather than with the constant attributes of objects. In living system, whether biological organisms or social organizations are actually dependent on their external environment and so must be conceived as an open systems. So, systems theory is about a framework observed from a holistic approach, shift in attention from part of the whole, considering the observed reality as an integrated and interactive continuum of phenomena, the relationship between parts themselves and the events they produce through their interaction become much more important. Systems elements are rationally connected with each other towards a shared purpose or objective. We are not able to fully comprehend a phenomena simply by breaking it up into some small parts and then reforming it. Instead, we need to apply a global vision or a holistic vision to underline its functioning. So, if you are seeing a particular problem of an organization, we have to have a holistic overview of the entire problem rather than just looking at the part. A vision of organization as a system with the aim of analyzing the relationship between organization and environment. Then we also focus on the technology, the technological change and how technology, organization, environment framework works. This is a comprehensive framework to understand technology adoption in the organization. Technology adoption framework often delves into external internal factors which are helping the organization adopt new technology, enabling the technology. The focus is on Identifying and addressing conditions, technology, organization, and its environment that either support or hinder the successful adoption and implementation of a new technology. The focus on securing necessary funding, environmental context, providing adequate staff training, organizational context, and ensuring the availability of compatible hardware and software, that is technological context. We understand how a technology is being adopted in the organization. If you see what is the environment, what is the amount of fund available to the organization, what is the kind of training being given to the employees, whether the training is useful to adopt the technology, and the hardware and software, that is the technology which is available in the organization. The four dimensions model of technology, some theorists might conceptualize technology in specific dimensions such as individual differences, systems characteristics, social influence, and facilitating conditions which help adopt new technology, which synthesize previous technology acceptance model research framework. So, we have seen several revolutions in, or we have seen industries facing industrial revolution, or the phases of industrial revolution which industries have seen, the wave 1 or the phase 1 of industrial revolution which was run on machine power or steam power, steam engine was the focus. The second phase of industrial revolution which focused on electrical energy. The third wave focused on automation, computerization. The fourth wave focused on smart industries, industry 4.0, or adoption of artificial intelligence, machine learning. The fifth wave which focused on uh, intelligent industries, how people can be developed so that they are more intelligent, so that they are able to take uh, decisions, they are able to take intelligent decisions. So, these phases of industrial revolutions are possible when there is a technology organization environment framework which emphasizes on how technology can be accepted by developing facilitating conditions, influencing people and their society to overcome individual differences by giving them adequate training, and also developing systems which are working in coordination with, or which are very beneficial to the people, which people can also adopt without any fear. So, the fourth industrial revolution is a broader concept which encompasses transformative technologies and their impact on society, where the interaction between human and these technologies is a focal point. Further, we will also discuss about the Aston Group and organizational size. So, do the organization remain their size, or there is an evolution, or there is a change in the size as the environment changes? The Aston Group refers to a group of researchers at the University of Aston who studied organizational structure and concluded that size or organizational size was a primary determinant of structural characteristics like formalization, specialization, a finding that challenged later theories which downplayed size in favor of other factors like technology. Their work is considered part of contingency approach which emerged around the same time as later stages of this theoretical evolution. Aston Group's contributions focus on size. Aston Group's research focused on relationship between organizational size and key structural dimensions. The key findings of this study is large organizations tend to be more specialized, more formalized, with more rules and regulations, more rules and procedures, and they are less centralized. Technology versus size. Aston Group argued that technology was a less significant variable in shaping organizational structure compared to size. So, we summarize this lecture. We have discussed in this lecture giving a broad overview of type 3 theories of modern management. The specific points that we have highlighted here in this theory is in the type 3 theories is contingency theory, modern systems theory, how environment influences organizational size, how technology is being adopted, technology acceptance model. Thank you.